Hey everyone, fair warning, the video might have some weird focusing going on in it here. Still having some growing pains with the camera, but don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Cut to the video. Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage. Today we're working on the ramp truck some more and tackling some of those running issues now that we have running lights. That's a terrible pun. Alright, so here's the status as of right now. The truck does run. It starts, it drives at slow speeds, it gets around very well at low speeds, and it will start very easily, which all of these things are encouraging. However, it does not want to accelerate. It cannot run for long periods of time. I notice the longer it runs, the worse it runs. So it seems like there is some issues with the carburetor. Now, to the best of my knowledge, this truck has not... I don't have a lot of books around here, so I don't have much knowledge. To the best of my knowledge, this truck has not been driven on the street since 2007. So that carburetor, at best, last worked in 2007. Who knows if somebody didn't just throw on whatever carburetor they had lying around and got it to run, and that was enough. Who knows? The carb on it is overkill, I believe. Unless this thing is way sportier than its appearance and it should be, there's no reason for the carb to be on there. So this is a Holley Street Avenger 4-barrel carburetor, and there is the casting mark that will probably not focus on. I did actually pretty well with that. So this carb, it's not bad. It's not a wrong installation, but keep in mind that these FE motors are factory two barrel. This is a 4-barrel. I think this is a 660 CFM carb. That's just way more than this thing needs, unless there are some secrets hiding below. And as far as I can tell, this is not the original engine of the truck. There's just a lot of witness marks of this being removed. One of the key factors was the fact that the transmission looked old and grungy and the engine looked pretty new. So someone probably engine swapped this thing at some point. And seeing as how this truck used to be owned by Ford drag racing teams, it's entirely plausible that that engine could be a 390 instead of the 352. I've just not cared enough, to be honest, to go in there and measure the thing. There is no casting marks on these. You can't really tell a 352 from a 360 to a 390. I don't care about that right now. The only thing I care about is making it run. I want it to be able to run well enough to drive it on the street. So my plan all along has been to go through the endeavor of rebuilding my very first carburetor. I am very ignorant to carburetors, and I've never really cared enough to learn about carburetors, so I just never have. I've always done fuel injection stuff, so from the moment this truck welcomed itself into my life, I've wanted to do an EFI swap on there. I unfortunately don't have the funding to do that, especially right now, because there's a reason that I'm pushing so hard to get this thing running at the moment. And that is, its first journey is very quickly approaching. In, we'll say, around a month's time, this bad boy's got to make a 500-mile journey north, as Cone's Garage here is moving north. So this, the 240, the Audi, probably not the Datsun initially, but everything needs to go north. And there's a lot of irony in that, I purchased this truck in South Carolina. I had it shipped down from South Carolina to here. It now needs to drive less than 100 miles away from where it came from. Oh well. So yeah, like I said, the plan all along was to rebuild this carburetor, try to get it going. We already redid a lot of the fuel system. I put new fuel filters on it, put new fuel hose on it, and I have been running it through, making sure it gets through clean. And you can see now, possibly, that there is nice clean fuel coming in. The problem is, over 10 to 15 years, what happened inside of here is probably not pretty. The fuel with ethanol breaks down, it turns into gum, it gums everything up. It could have rust in there as well from sitting, if it got water infiltration. Who knows? Who knows? One thing I can tell, it's probably not on a flight, but the back bowl area is leaking pretty good. It's not enough that it's like flooding all over the engine, but it does leak. And like I said last time, I discovered that the choke had been disengaged, but disengaged in a way that it is always on. So this truck currently only runs with the choke on, and no amount of tuning that I have been able to do has gotten it to change. Over the Christmas break, somebody was kind enough to bring down the chimney. This. It's not the Holley EFI I always wanted, but it is a brand new, not rebuilt, Holley square bore carburetor. And this is just your plain 600 CFM 4-barrel, basically, I don't want to say bottom of the line, but it is, it's not the high performance carb that you might be a little bit more familiar with. But it is brand new. It is apparently tuned to be ready to run. So we're going to see just how ready to run it actually is. Now you might be saying, that's a bit disappointing. I wanted to see you rebuild the carburetor. And I agree. I want to see me rebuild the carburetor too. I have the kit for this thing, and once we arrive at our destination and somewhere in the future, I'm probably going to make a day of that. Just like, hey, let's try to rebuild this carburetor and have some fun with it, rather than it being very stressful. Because if I did it right now, it'd be super stressful, since I need this thing to be able to move here very, very soon. So don't worry, I will definitely do that. I have the kit for it, and I did a lot of research for it already. I'm just taking some reference pictures right now so I can see how this throttle linkage is hooked up and just how everything is currently orientated, so that in the future I won't be sitting here scratching my head trying to go through that footage, remembering how everything went. Okay, so we got two springs here for the return. They seem super skookum. And on the back side of this throttle linkage, which has been bent and modified and possibly welded together, there is a cotter pin. That is it right there. So if I pull this cotter pin out, wow, it's the softest cotter pin. I'm going to do this by hand. Maybe I'm just that strong. Alright, so we got cotter pin out. Should have, a washer that goes on the back side of it that holds the cotter pin in place, and then this just pops right out. So hopefully the throttle linkage of the new carb looks pretty similar to that. Keep in mind we're going Holley for Holley here, so there shouldn't be too much difference. And it does indeed look pretty similar here. Are we about the point to start making a mess? Probably. Alright, we got one vacuum line. The one vacuum line is for the vacuum advance on the distributor. Alright, so the throttle linkage is off. Now we have undone the fuel line that I put a big mat under to catch all the fuel and, I don't know, make a Molotov out of. But it has drained a pretty good amount of fuel out of there. There wasn't any garbage in there. I was kind of curious. I have not taken this fuel line off. I was curious if a bunch of garbage was going to come out of the carb, but not really. 4 bolts hold it to this adapter. Now, my assumption is this is a truck. It should have a 2-barrel intake manifold on there, so this adapter is probably taking it from 2 holes into 4. It could also be that someone put a different intake manifold on it, but that's a little unlikely. We'll see. And go ahead and take these off. They shouldn't be very tight, and they certainly are not. From when I was raining, you don't want to... Goodbye, Alan. Bye. Got it. You don't want these very tight because you'll actually end up warping the base of the carburetor. Now that's not as big of a deal on this one as it is probably the new one, because the new one is aluminum. Getting those precious weight savings. Probably took it from 5,200 pounds to like 5,198. It's a big deal. But yeah, when we take these out, in my mind, that should be it. It should be ready to come off, which is pretty wild. Just in comparison to what I'm used to. Just thinking of like removing the injectors from the 240. All right, well, an hour of taking apart different fuel rails and intake manifold parts and vacuum lines. Or if it was a German car, taking it to the dealership, trading it in, never looking at it again. I can make that joke. I have Japanese and German cars. I know how they do. Do you know what they've never needed? Carburetor replacement. That's not true. The Datsun Japanese needs a carburetor. So far I've used 3 tools. This should be ready to be removed. Oh, new light. Another Christmas present. Pretty fancy. Yeah, that's it. Just that easy. Yep, little fuel spill. That is heavy. That is so much heavier than the new one. Oh, that's got to be at least 2 pounds, maybe 3 pounds of weight savings. All right, you out of here. One thing I just noticed is that gasket wasn't very pressed in, which leads me to believe that carb hasn't been on there very long. Which leads me to believe somebody was like, "We need to sell that truck. You got a carburetor laying around?" And they just threw it on there. So we have here the adapter. I want to peep in there. If I can do this without busting my butt. I'm sure it's fine. Second. Okay. That's a 4-barrel intake. So either this is an intake off of a car, or somebody switched it out for like an Elbrock one or something. They're hard to tell. And everything's so old and there's no tags left on anything. But there is a clue as to a little bit of the origins of this engine. Well, that is cool though. It is nice to know that they weren't stuffing 4 barrels of fuel down through a 2-barrel intake. Not that that's impossible to do, it's just not quite as pleasant of a passage for the fuel and air to get through. All right, let's set that new one down on there and make sure the holes line up. There's no reason they shouldn't. Oh, I can't even begin to describe to you how much lighter this one is. Fuel is on the opposite side. Hopefully that's not a problem. No, looking at it, that's not a problem. And then, any clearance issues? No, I think we're good. And then this will just need to come up over here. I got like 16 feet of hard line over here. I can kind of bend towards this, I think. Okay. So all we need is a gasket. Everybody lines up nice and happy there. And this one came with studs. I'm kind of tempted to put those in. All right, good news. That debate was solved for me, and that the holes on the new carb are a little bit bigger, and the bolts that the other one used would have been too small. It wouldn't have seated down right. Now the absolute last thing I want to do here is drop one of these studs into the engine. That would be a nightmare. I like to say these things before I do them so that I can remember how much of an idiot I am when I actually do it. And carb time. There it goes. Just a little gentle persuasion. I checked to see if there was any please remove this before installation things. I didn't. I want to. We're good. We're good. Better safe than sorry. Okay. Man, if Kurt's watching this, he is having a heck of a frown right now, I bet, because when he got his Corolla, it had a factory carburetor on it, and it didn't run very well. So we encouraged him to go for a Weber carb because it seems to be the go-to for these kinds of things. Or for those kinds of things, small Japanese 4-cylinder, and that was a pretty intensive project for somebody that had never had a project car before. Really, he had never changed his own oil, but he changed his carburetor, and yeah, there's adapters and You got to make your own throttle linkage and stuff, and he's just sitting there right now going, this guy's got it easy. And so far, yeah, I do. But don't worry, something will go horribly wrong before the end of the day. I can guarantee it. Once this thing goes through some heat cycles, I'll come back in and snug these up a bit more. Click. 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 Okay, so ye old fuel line needs a little tweak in here. Bit different on this setup in that the fuel line is obviously on the right side, and also it's only connected via this tube that joins the two bowls together, versus the other one had two individual fuel lines going to both bowls. Now if I was smart, I would have taken that vacuum cap off before I put it on there. I'd really like to know where they get these vacuum caps. Does anybody know? I can never find high quality vacuum caps. All I find is the crappy ones they sell at the part stores that split in like a week. But these ones that come with things seem to last forever. Doesn't make any sense. Where do they get these? I don't know. Let's put this vacuum advance back on. A new stud for the air cleaner. See if this one hits the hood like the other one did. Alright, so one last little bit of setup that we had to do was for the carburetor choke, because it was never actually hooked up. It was never wired up to be an electronic choke. So when I was doing the blinker stuff, found an ignition source here, and I made a wire for the future to hook up to the carb. So this is a wire that has power only when the ignition is on. And let's use our new power probe to make sure that it has power. It does. As you can see, you just have to touch it and it'll show your voltage. And let's turn the key back off and make sure that it turns off. Because what we don't want is it just to be on all the time. And we're good. So these work a little bit backwards from what my intuition was. So when this has power, it starts the sequence of basically heating up the coil in there enough to release the spring, which will open up the choke. My theory, my understanding was always like, it's always open, but when it has power, it closes for a certain amount of time, but it's actually the opposite of that. Hey, it's going. It's doing the thing. So you can see, maybe, that's pretty far away, but the blade is opening up on the choke as it's been under power. So in theory, as the truck was running and coming up to temperature, the choke would slowly be opening. Cool. Well, I guess there's just not much to it at this point. It's going to take some cranking to get some fuel into the carb, and we might have to prime it a bit. Well, I didn't expect that. So it kicked over there, but that was just fuel that was left over in the engine from the last carburetor, actually. So yeah, this carb doesn't have any fuel in it just yet. But I think what I can do is actually inject some fuel into here to fill the bowls, and that will help fire it off a little easier. So here's a little something that I have done. This is an old air tool oil container, and it's got that nice little tiny opening for it, which will be useful for adding some fuel into everything besides the carburetor, because I'm a mess. Alright, doing my least favorite thing, reading. Fast idle adjustment is on the choke side here, and it is a screw up under the choke when you open it wide open, you can see it. Using a 1/4 inch or using a 1/4 inch wrench, turn the screw clockwise to increase, counterclockwise to decrease. So we want to go and loosen that. Well, so much for my 1/4 inch ratchet. It's really high, so I'm making a big swing. And let's see. Maybe it'll run way, way, way too fast now. Okay, now with the understanding of what counterclockwise means, let's try it again. It's never sounded that good before. What engine is this? That seriously doesn't even sound like the same engine. That's wild. Idling really good. Let's see. Give it a little throttle. See if it wants to die or anything like that. It's just because it idles doesn't mean it's running right. So let's see what we got here. Still idling about 900. It could actually be a little bit lower, I think. Yeah, so you see, as soon as I tried to tip in, it cut out. Let's see if it'll restart. So it might need a little bit of adjustment there. So yeah, this is fast idle. And now I'm letting off and it's dying. Alright, so need to adjust to the standard idle now. Because I definitely took some standard idle out of it, trying to get it to slow down. But what I should have done was change the fast idle first. Frickin' noobs, I tell you. This car would be super handy to have two people. Two people would be great. Okay. But of course I'm stubborn. Gotta do everything myself. Or at least try. So that's around 800. Gonna bring it up to like that 850 mark. It's not dieseling, it's not doing anything weird there on shutoff, so I'm pretty darn happy right now. I think I'm gonna put the air cleaner on. I don't have my GoPro with me, so I can't really do like on-road driving today. But I'm gonna drive it down the street, we'll see how it does, and then go from there. Alright everybody, we're gonna try to get this thing down to the gas station for the first time on the road. Hopefully the camera's okay. It's literally on a tripod with a bungee cord holding it in. Sure, it's fine. I finally did just get it registered after 3 trips to the DMV. A fun birthday adventure. Battery's still a little bit low. I have the jump pack with me just in case. I did put some fuel in it. The audio is probably going to be awful because of the wind. I put the sock on there, but it might not be enough. But I'm certainly not going to drive with windows down. Because what's the fun in that? Let's put our safety belt on for safety. I feel safe. Let's go. we got third. Let's putz around for a little bit here before we go out on the major roadways. I think the carb might still be in choke. Alright, let's see if we can find fourth here. I've never actually found fourth. Hey, there it is. It does exist. Let's see if there's enough opening in the gas station. There it is, of course not. Holy crap, the fuel gauge works. I had no idea. I just assumed it didn't. Third gear, first try. Look at me go. This is cool. I enjoy this. As much as I'm not a truck guy, I guess I get the appeal. Ride's super smooth. Just soaks up the bumps. You don't feel them through your spine at all. Yeah, this is great. It's no rocket, but it accelerates now. I'm sure that carb still needs some work. Like, out of the box is never perfect. No two engines are the same. And I have a feeling that carb is going to be tuned for something a little sportier than what's underneath of it. Lean into it. Let's try and get out here. Third's a little crunchy. So some new shocks might be nice. I think those like load bearing shocks on the front make it worse. It makes the front so bouncy. It'd probably be different with a car on there. I smell brake or clutch a little bit. Probably brake. Could just be that those shoes aren't broken in. Might be a little too tight. It's not too unhappy with. I wouldn't say it's thrilled, but it's not unhappy. An overdrive would do wonders for this thing, though. Absolute wonders. Getting out to where it's 60 miles an hour, so we're going to see just what it's going to be like on the highway as of now. This is going to be a treat here. This is a busy road. Someone's nice enough to let me out, which they ain't gonna be. Come on. Got it eventually. Alright, can we get forward? Got it. Oh yeah. We got this. Alright. Let's see what our speed's like. Oh boy. Narrow road. 55. we can. All right. Oil pressure's been good. The water temp gauge does not work. That's probably the thing I'm going to. Oops, I've been an old man with a blinker on the whole time. That's probably the next thing to really tackle. That'll be easy. Oh, I'm getting it down now. Feeling good. I was worried about that transmission. It certainly needs new oil and new gaskets, but shift's all right. You just gotta know it. You gotta learn it. All right, well, that was a successful first trip out in the truck. Wasn't anything too specifically wrong with it. I didn't have any major problems and have to stop. I was able to get through the gears well enough. A few grinds here or there, but overall I didn't completely screw that up, and it seems like it does shift, because that was one of the things that I frankly just didn't know. I didn't know if that was something that worked before it was stopped being used or whatever. So I'm happy about that, and I'm certainly happy with how well it ran. The carb seems to be really pretty well tuned. It's not perfect, but it certainly seems to be a lot better than what was on there, and it cruises along and accelerates. It does everything it's supposed to do. Had a little bit of a trouble getting it to start when it was warm, but carburetors, that's kind of just how they are usually. So overall, a pretty positive experience. From here, next thing, definitely going to do water temperature gauge. It's certainly not overheating. I can just tell that it's not overheating, but it's nice to know. I'm going to change the transmission gear oil because the stuff that's coming out of there is frankly tar. And some other little things to button up. I'm going to look at the steering box and see if we can snug it up just to get us by before we can eventually replace it. And from there, I think it's going to be a matter of loading the car on, getting the tie downs correct. I'm going to modify the 240 a little bit more to put to use. Hold on, let's see if we can get in here. Oh, this was my tripod setup, by the way, if that's anywhere in focus. So one of the many YouTubers I watch, Smart Every Day, is all about the snatch block. So we are going to put a snatch block mount basically on the front of the 240. So that's going to make it pull up half as fast, but with twice the power, basically. And I'm going to try and design a hook for the front of the 240 because we put the bumper back on, if you remember. So hopefully we can do that, and that'll be what we do the next time I join you here in the garage. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time. I just said that. Don't worry about it. There we go.